Good afternoon, everybody. This is Nitin Jog. I had the data sciences, CRM, and the operations teams at Bajaj Finserv Health. Quick introduction, to the company. We are a 4-year-old startup inside the Bajaj Finserv ecosystem, 100%, invested by the Finserv Group. And we launched, 4 years back, we launched OPD, which is Outpatient Department, right? So this is typically doctor consultations, your health checkup plans, your wellness plans for, say, nutritionists, dietitians in the market. Most of you guys might be familiar with the traditional IPD plans that corporates offer, which is your 24-hour health, if you stay in a hospital for more than 24 hours. What we brought was insurance around OPD into the healthcare sector. And again, the vision is to make it prepaid, preventive, and personalized. I think you heard some of these words in the Tata 1mg presentation. What we, I think, make it as prepaid is through the insurance. So how do we make it even more affordable to the general, even the retail sector? Many of the corporates have started offering it now. We are also taking it to a lot of insurers through the retail sector. We also, in between 6 months back, we acquired Vidal Health Services. Through them, we are also trying to make this impact of whatever I'm presenting in the IPD world. Going into a little bit of our OPD, IPD, we specialize in OPD, and the difference between the two is typically the ticket sizes. OPD is very high volume. We process around, 1.5 to 2 lakh claims a month. Typical IPD providers would process around 40 to 50,000 claims, depending on the size of their, operations. Cost or affordability that we have to process a single claim, because these are very low ticket sizes, somewhere between 20 to 30. So a lot of things we want to automate. Now, because of this, we cannot always involve a human person, right, in all our operations. So a lot of our, I would say, use cases around AI, data, ML are around operations. I'm going to focus more on the fraud and abuse side, because that's also becoming very big in this sector. If you see the healthcare market in India, right, just the insurance side of the house, around 70,000 crore worth of claims actually get paid, right? If you ask industry experts, they would say it's around 10% to 15% of these there's some kind of fraud and abuse. And I'll just harp on this fraud and abuse. Fraud is where, something which you are not entitled for, but you didn't even do that, take that service, and you fraudulently, raised a request for it. Abuse is where the service was provided, but things were inflated to an extent, right? So service did happen, but the treatment might not have been required, but it was done, or shown at least that it was done. So that's sort of a difference between fraud and abuse. But huge opportunity, 7,000 plus crore, just looking at last year's claims paid out. And we want to make a difference, in catching some of these. I will walk you through the framework that we have, developed over time in terms of approaching this entire problem statement. And when we first got into the OPD side of the house, we were fairly naive, to be frank, and we have made a lot of mistakes and actually paid out a lot of claims. But we don't want these mistakes to be, again, repeated by other providers in this ecosystem. At the same time, we also need to get a little smarter, right, and not just give out money. So this is sort of the framework that we have developed over time. It starts with the identification part, moving into the investigation side. Identification is what I would primarily focus on, but we do a lot of work, and we have a lot of systems which also focus around the investigation, the management, deterrence part, and eventually the feedback loop happens, through how do you actually prevent. That's, I think, the holy grail. If you can somehow prevent, I would say, fraud or abuse from happening, I think then you have solved most of the problem, right? You need less of AI, ML if you can actually deter people from actually committing this. But I think we are still far off from that. But that's generally the framework, and typically the entities that we deal with, the providers, in our ecosystem. We are both urban as well as rural, along with most of the big chain hospitals and lab diagnostic networks, we also have a lot of, we see a lot of small, service providers across the rural landscape as well. On which sometimes you don't have a lot of data points also. But the providers, doctors, typically customers is, typically OPD has been more prominent around, corporates, but it has picked up in the retail sector also. So many of you here might be having a OPD plan through your respective, insurance provider. Obviously, the fourth one is actually the transaction. That is actually the claim that we are processing. And the challenge is, how do we actually catch this fraud abuse, at the time of claim itself, instead of post facto. My boss keeps on saying, "Tum to hamesha postmortem karte rehte ho." Not much use, right? So how do we actually try to prevent it, early on while the claim has been processed? And imagine a lot of times now in our ecosystem, we are doing a lot of backending of these claims, where it goes through what we call as STP, or it goes through what we call as co-pilot, where, we have some 15, 20 rule sets to adjudicate a claim. The adjudicator is highlighted, these are the only 2, 3 rules to check. So he has a few minutes to do it. How within that time can you nudge him to really look at the more intricate details of the claim to catch that potential, data point that would allow you to, prevent the abuse or fraud from happening. I'm now actually going to make it a little interesting. Here are some samples of claims that and this is a very, very small sample just to give you an idea what kind of claims or frauds or abuse happens, right? And this is becoming much more easier now in our digital world. If you see marquee logo like Apollo Diagnostic, now this fraud was actually done by a customer, not the hospital, right? There was a cohort of customers we had discovered over a period of time who took a single bill and kept on changing the bill number. If you see, right, the date, name, and the bill number is what keeps on changing. But a lot of things, like if you see the UHID, typically that is unique at a hospital level. Each customer gets that. Now they forgot to change that. But again, the entire invoice, if you see, same replica. And there's many more scenarios like this, right, where people just edit, but they do forget to actually, edit everything that was relevant to the patient, and that is how we need to catch some of these. Now, this is going a little bit beyond. Someone has changed the content inside, but they have sort of, if you see, it's a templatized. So they just kept on changing the names of hospitals, right? And some level of change in the content. How do we catch? So what we call this as a template. And typically hospitals, when they are doing electronic invoicing, they do have a standard template. So now we have created a repository of templates of hospitals who we sort of, try to keep on our side, and then some of these we are able to catch. This is again where using photoshopping tools or even simple things like, overwriting a bill, people will change dates, because usually in a policy period, you are only allowed to claim it within a policy period, or there's a 30-day, window in which you need to claim, and you might have exceeded that. So how do you, circumvent those typical adjudication rules that will probably not allow you to claim? So these are examples of that. This whitener detection, if you see, right, the rightmost invoice, actually, someone has changed 700 to 1700. We caught it. We probably denied it. Then he came back and he used whitener to make it back to 700 so that we can actually, again claim he could get it paid. The below part is what I would actually want to draw the attention to, where this information today, I talk about the framework that we use, the identification, investigation, and deterrence management, and so on and so forth. We today, for our adjudication team, we actually have the output of our fraud abuse models directly available to be consumed within the CRM or the claim adjudication platform, right? And that actually makes it more effective, because oftentimes we see that we keep on creating models. If they don't get consumed at where they should be, you don't get the right outcome, because at the end of the day, how much ever we improve the accuracy of the models, if my adjudicator is not able to find that or see that information at the time of adjudication, it's not of any use. So if you see the third line here, we had actually called out that document forgery check fail. So these again become nudges, so then the adjudicator has to look a little bit closer. We also now, over time, we have improved the systems to actually pinpoint exactly what failed. He can go and look at bills and so on and so forth. One more example, someone had an entire invoice book with him, essentially, and he was just changing names, and this was happening across a corporate where, वो employee बात करते हैं, they know, अरे मेरा तो चल गया claim, मेरा तो pay कर दिया, मेरे पास invoice भी है. They just keep on changing the names and numbers, but we see that the dates are different. So the invoice, what's the coincidence that this specific clinic did not have any customers between these 4 guys who happened to claim, right, on different dates. So again, we are getting a little smarter as people are fooling us. We are getting a little smarter, and now with more of the upcoming technologies, Gen AI, and so on and so forth, hopefully we'll be able to curb a lot of these. This is a limited landscape of capabilities we have developed over time. There's a lot more even on the cashless side, right? Because cashless, typically, there's less of documents. It's happening at the provider side. So different kind of challenges, because you almost pay upfront to the provider. So there's very little time to catch, right, in a cashless operation. Today, we do around 25 to 30% cashless. The remaining comes as reimbursements, which is through documents. And so this is the landscape, I would say a subset of the landscape that we have developed over time. And I will go a little bit now into, I would say, the technicalities of how we are trying to solve for some of these. I will walk through maybe a few, key ones that probably would be of interest to a few of you. Obviously, document processing, again, some of this was, I think, in the previous presentation, but this is heart of everything that we do, starts with a document. In India, unfortunately, we don't have digitized data in healthcare yet, and we have a long walk. Someone mentioned PHR, patient health records, EMR, electronic medical records. There's NDHM is building a health claim exchange now through which electronic claims are supposed to come in, but I think it's a few years out. Adoption has started. Till then, we have to live with documents, right? And that's what the hospital provides, and that's what the physicians and the labs provide. So we have to get smarter at handling these. We have this document similarity, tampering, and then I will walk you through this whole Nexus syndicate detection framework that we have built. A little bit about the document processing. Like I said, it's the heart of our fraud abuse framework. It all starts with the patient who has done who is doing a reimbursement claim. He actually files through our own app. He goes and uploads his documents along with certain information. So it's like just a 3 to 4 minute process through which the claim comes and lands into our. We use Salesforce as our backend policy and claim and product processing engine. So it comes and sits inside something called as a buffer zone. And then on top of the documents, we do this document pre-processing. Oftentimes we see that जब वो photo लेते हैं, right? I think there's a lot of noise around the photo. You have tables, you will have documents superimposed on documents, नीचे का background. There's a lot of noise and clutter. 2 documents in the same page, all these sort of make it difficult for us to really figure out what exactly is this. Though we do nudge the person, you only upload a lab invoice or you only upload a prescription. Oftentimes, we see that it might not come out as what we expected. So we have a bunch of, I would say, capabilities we have developed over time to do blur checks, smart cropping, auto rotation, and so on and so forth. We use YOLO, GAN-based. Again, the images sometimes have to be actually, the quality of the images is also a big deal. Sometimes to the mobile app itself, we restrict it to a certain size. People just, casually take the picture. It might be blurred. We call out. He might still continue to send it the way it has come up, right? So some of the pre-processing happens. Then the next part is, I think, more important. That is where we are seeing good traction through tools like Gen AI, because it understands the context, right? And if we do the right prompting, it knows that what I'm trying to extract out of this is in the medical context, and please extract these kind of the provider names, patient names, what diagnosis, medications, diseases, dates, even prescription, the medications that they have written on the prescription, so on and so forth, right? So all these gets extracted. We have multiple, we used to run a lot of our own NER models. Over time, we have moved to pretty much, Gemini and OpenAI for this, because they seem to be doing a pretty decent job. We have over 90-95% accuracy in terms of extracting the information. Again, the OCR output is what does matter in all of these, and again, improving the image quality, doing the right OCR out of it, and then feeding into the Gen AI models helps here. The third piece is the document enrichment. A lot of the information that we have extracted, sometimes it's not the correct one, right? Because the OCR itself might have gone wrong in extracting the text. So the Gen AI can only do so much for you, right? But so we do enhance it through some of these external entity databases that we have to correct, right? Oftentimes the medication name might be missed by a couple of letters here and there. You are able to do some good text lookups and get the correct medication because it's related to the disease. You can link the two and come back, with a good name match. So document enrichment extraction. This is the first step of our entire process, I would say, and everything extracted out of this sort of feeds into the next set of, I would say, capabilities that we develop. This is just an example where, it's an illustration of a bill coming through, what gets extracted. We get some information from Google Maps just to verify that did this clinic actually exist in that location. Oftentimes in remote places, we hardly know, right? But Google sometimes is better at knowing that. So all these enrichments happen. We try to figure out by matching it with the policy data, we are able to overcome some of the gaps in this entire, I would say, NER process and bridge those, right? That is how it happens. And everything eventually comes as some form of a JSON, with auto corrections and enrichment. Now the challenges with some of these, obviously, handwritten one, I think in India, we still see around 30 to 40%. In doctor prescriptions, almost, I would say 60-70% are handwritten, unless it's coming from some doctor in a hospital and so on and so forth. So again, there we do see good results from GPT and so on and so forth. So it's helping solve some of the problems. Document quality variability, speed at which we are able to process some of this. We do around 3 to 4,000 claims a day. So around 10 to 12,000 documents come in on a 3 lakh a month, 3 to 4 lakh documents a month, and making sure they are getting processed for the adjudicator to take a decision on top of it. There is at least some element of speed that is required, though it does run in a more of a asynchronous and batch manner. Balancing accuracy and coverage, right? We are always trying to figure out, what should be the accuracy. Should it be 90, 95? Ye chal jayega kya? Because end of the day, we give something incorrect or we miss out on something, it's going to cost us some claim getting incorrectly paid, and that's the cost of missing that claim, right? At the same time, in the fraud abuse world, you can't cry wolf too many times, right? Because there's a investigation and scrutiny cost of it. You always have to balance it. So some of these things, I think in most of your use cases also, you would always have to balance some of these activities. And then regulatory data protection, that is with the new laws coming in, we try to make sure that we de-anonymize a lot of the stuff when we actually put it into our backend, NoSQL DBs. And how do you segregate PII versus, what's related actually to the medical information about the customer, right? And typically, we associated that with a different tag. So we have our own identifiers to segregate the PII versus medical information, so that even if something propagates downstream, you're not flowing the PII, right, downstream. So this document similarity, duplicacy check, again, I mentioned document, then full, we flow it and get the raw text through OCRs. We are using Elasticsearch, I think the BM25 algorithm, I think it's more of a text matching algorithms. Again, we have gone through this evolution process over the last 2.5 years to try to figure out which thing works best. And as new things come in the market, every 2 to 3 months, we do revisit what, how to benchmark against the new capabilities and see, is it giving something more better for us to actually invest in that new technology, or we should continue to do what we have today. Again, some of the challenges with some of these capabilities. Forgery detection here, this is something interesting, and I don't think we have still cracked it, but this I think is again going to be a little bit of a tough problem to crack, because the editing things are just getting simpler and simpler, right? Document editing is a piece of cake, right, for everybody. But obviously, if you can at the same time augment it, right, with some other intelligence that you have for yourself behind the scenes, I think it's going to be much more effective. It's a little bit more technical. People who are technical will probably understand it. I also don't understand completely, to be frank. But yeah. Forgery detection, I think this is sort of leading from the previous one, right? We use multiple techniques nowadays. If you use things like Photoshop to edit documents, it will use a watermark. How do you actually then find that watermark, right? So we have ways to do some of that. Overwriting detection is a big one, because oftentimes if someone is lazy enough not to go back to the doctor to get the right prescription or invoice, he will just decide to take things in his own hand and just edit it, right? So what you see in the video is sort of the whole, how we try to detect, that something in a specific document has actually got edited. So these are ways for us to highlight. And actually, these heat maps are what we show sometimes to our adjudicator, that this is the part of the bill which we think is probably modified. Obviously, we cannot be 100% accurate, but these are nudges that we are able to give to the adjudicator, कि इसको जरा ठीक से देख लो, right? That's what we do. Template similarity I talked to you about. Here we mask the entire data inside the template, and then it becomes binary, and then you are comparing a binary to binary comparison, and anything which is matching very close, but inside that you see that the hospital names and everything are different, because you also have the actual content, right? Then you can link the two together and say there is something wrong. Why are two hospitals using the same template, or whatever it is, right? So that's how we do it. Challenges here: low image quality, variety of formats, like we said, printed, handwritten. In India, you also have vernacular languages. If you go to the south, you will see most of the prescriptions actually, you cannot read them. The language is vernacular. Also, the names are printed, and then there's a checkbox. You have to actually extract what was the test basis the checkbox. How do you do that in a more automated fashion? So that's where some of the object detection models and all come into picture. Now the nexus and syndicate method. So I think this sort of, I think, is now getting propagated in a lot of places. I would say in our world, we do see that if we are able to catch the nexus or the syndicates, that actually is a big leapfrog for us, because individuals ko to hum pakad nahi sakte hai, right? Because and it's not worth our time and money and effort to actually go after them and litigate. 400-500 rupees ke liye, who is going to take all this pain, right? But if we can establish, syndicates where a certain provider is involved and maybe the agent who sold the policy is involved, that actually is, I would say, a much more better, it gives us a much more ROI for our investment in fraud and abuse, because you can actually go and chase that agent. You can actually sometimes go to the corporate, through which this policy was, provided to the customer. And we have seen a lot of this nexus patterns where same set of employees going to the same doctor, getting the same prescription, and filing for it. So through some of the syndicate analysis frameworks, we are actually able to connect these dots. And what we generally do is, whenever we detect fraud, right, we try to use this more as a deterrence today, because to go after the individual person is going to be very, very tough. But when it's through corporates, usually go through the HRs, and they also want to make sure that there's no unethical practices being followed, right? Because it's a privilege that we all have this insurance policies. Abuse is what leads to the policy premiums going up. It also leads to the corporate's premium going up, over time. So they have a vested interest in actually protecting themselves. And also, so sometimes you just have to educate the employees, or in the retail, they have to educate the agent, and so on and so forth. It's not worth your effort, right, going through this, this pain. Coming back to the I think the algorithms are what are at the heart of it. We try to do this more real time, because as the claim comes in, and as we have a certain threshold, right? How many linkages are we seeing? And we keep on changing that also, right? And which attributes we use to do this linkages also is an important factor here. The pros are like, yeah, it's fast, it's intuitive, it's some of the graphical part is easy for you when you are actually going through the process of investigation. But a lot of these today we try to run in the background, because you technically or actually operationally you cannot really look at so many claims and observe them, right? So we have algorithms which will take this Nexus databases and surface exactly what we see to the adjudicator, and then the adjudicator uses some of these to go a little deeper. Let's see if this video plays. This is an example of how the can you play this video? Yeah. So one good thing is now that we all use mobile phones have a unique device ID. A lot of times we are using, the customer gives us his UPI handles or payment details where the claim is settled, right, where the payment actually goes into. So a lot of factors, if we see, are common across claims. You will see that the same bank account is getting repeated across 4 or 5 different customers. Obviously, there's something fishy, right? So things like that. And the syndicate analysis sort of helps us, surface some of that. Quick feedback loop methods. Again, we believe in both. Our claim adjudicator, I think, is the best person to give us the feedback. He has a reality check on what we have surfaced to him. Is this valuable for him or not? And also in the system itself, he has to do a agree-disagree. And we have 5% of the claims which 100% someone has to agree, disagree, because that works as a feedback mechanism. At the same time, because our data is evolving over time, we have our own ways of, retraining the models, right? Every few months, depending on the criticality and how we see that the accuracy, because field will keep on telling you, boss, तूने 100 भेजा, मेरा तो अभी 10 ही निकल रहा है. You have to get me at least 20. If you are giving me 100, you need to get me at least 15 out of them better be some kind of abuse fraud, right? To give them the ROI. So these activities help us sort of, stay more current. A busy slide. The only point I would say is scalability is what we are sort of building for. We are currently Azure shop, Azure and Salesforce shop. Most of you would be using this AKS frameworks and Dockers and so on and so forth. We used to do things in sequential manner, like one after the other. We are doing a lot of parallel rule checking now, because as the volumes increase, you need to scale out. So this architecture, we have Kafka in between, which does some of the event-based architecture. Way forward, we are adopting these to the IPD world. IPD is more complex, but at the same time, same patterns repeat. So whatever we have done, we have actually done benchmarking, and a lot of it is transferable, right? Though there are more document types, And also the number of pages in a single document can exceed 50 to 60 in IPD claims. Their abuse is a bigger part of it, so we have to get better at that. We are productizing this and also offering it into the market now. So we have a few insurers who are working with us for their own use cases, and we are directly working with them. Learnings, and in conclusion, I think our learning is first is, define your measurement metrics. One is the technical side of it. You also need to define your business metrics. So typically, we have defined, I showed you the framework, identification and then investigation. We have a certain improvement metric that we say out of 100 I surface, someone has to investigate 20. That's their KRA. Minimum 20, they actually have to, the goal for them is close to 80%. What I surface, 80% has to be investigated. And our goal is we need to at least surface the accuracy of our surfacing to them for, identifying as fraud needs to be at least 20 to 25%. That's at least, and it changes again, right? As we get better, the targets will keep on changing. Consumption is important. If what you have developed is not being consumed in the field, no use of making yourself feel good about the capability. Feedback mechanism obviously is very critical, and cost conscious. I think in our world, or in everybody in your day-to-day world also, Gen AI, though the per unit costs are going down, volumes are going up, it can go haywire any time, right? And everybody in the organization is doing it. So obviously we need to have we need to be cost conscious about the technologies we use. Build for scale. I think that's critical for us. OPD for sure, IPD because of the number of documents and so on and so forth. My one IPD claim is equivalent of almost 10 to 20 OPD claims. If I start processing IPD, I have a lot more processing to do, right? That's it from my side. Yeah, thank you.